to the Deerfield Ranch kitchen. We're preparing one of our favorite meals, and that's French onion soup made from the turkey leftovers. We're going to show you how to make the stock and then go from there. Great soup always starts with a great stock. Of course, we do the same thing with chicken, but if you got that turkey, it's the way to do it. So we've got the what's left of the turkey. We trimmed off all the meat, enough for leftovers for turkey sandwiches. So all this goes in the pot. The rest of this is pretty standard fare for our stocks. We use a variety of vegetables, some really big carrots from the garden. But you can leave the peels on. Chop things up coarsely. I like a lot of carrots in my stocks. It adds richness and a bit of sweetness. Carrots, a whole head of garlic unpeeled, cut across the equator. Some herbs from the garden, some oregano, some parsley, some thyme, some rosemary, a little bit of lemongrass, some bay leaves. You know, if you live in California, you can go outside and pick them off a bay tree. One pepper, one jalapeno pepper, a leek, some celery, a couple onions, didn't bother to peel them, and then finally one of my other secret ingredients, the rind from the cheese. The rind adds real richness to the stock. It's a great way to use up your rind. We add wine. I've got some Pinot Gris that we had with the turkey, Deerfield Ranch, of course. We'll put that in there. We've got quite a bit left of the Chardonnay. One of our Aroba Chardonnays. If I had some more white wine, I'd put it in there also. So we didn't have enough wine left over to fill the pot. So we're going to fill it with water. We put equivalent of about 2 bottles of wine in there. We're going to add a little salt to the stock. I like to salt my stock before I cook it. I find I use less salt that way than if I add it afterwards. The turkey was brined, so it's got a little salty taste to the bones. So we don't have to add a lot of salt. So we're going to let this come to a boil, put the lid on it, let it cook all day, and then come back tonight and make this beautiful stock into a wonderful French onion soup. And you're all invited to dinner. So this stock is cooked all day, very low heat, much like we do with the beef stock. Boy, if we only had 4D video, the smell here is just wonderful. Now we're going to strain it and recover that sauce or that stock for this wonderful soup. We're going to put this to a colander first. We're going to strain this into our separator. This happens to be a beautiful glass one. You can buy them in plastic, probably more practical because they won't get broken. The fat, of course, goes to the top. So we'll let this set a moment. It'll separate out some of the fat. The strainer is straining out the smaller particles. And then we'll pour off the stock. So we're going to let that set for a minute. I often make this entirely with wine, no water. It's made from the wine that we have left over. We open a lot of wine here, and so there's always some that are a little too old. So we use that. We collect it until we have 5 or 6 bottles and pour it in. We didn't have that much this morning, so we used about half wine and half water in this. It's really just as good. While this is settling out, we're going to prep the onions. We're using plain old yellow onions. We want about 5 cups. That's about 6 onions, 5 to 6 onions, depending on their size. You know, the secret to peeling onions without crying is a really sharp knife. If you're cutting instead of breaking open the cells, you won't cry. So sharpen your knife before you cut your onions. You could do this in the Cuisinart, or you can use this mandolin, simple plastic one. I think we bought it at the county fair. It's on thin slices, very thin. We're going to add a little fresh grated onion to the end of the soup, so that part that wouldn't go through the slicer, we'll save it. Into a heavy bottom pot. What we're going to do now is we're going to caramelize the onions. We're going to cook them until they're golden brown. We're adding about 4 tablespoons of butter. We're adding just a touch of sugar. This is a quarter of a teaspoon. This is used to help the onions brown. And a teaspoon of salt. We're going to put this on the stove, cook it over a low heat with a lid on it for 15 minutes. This is to soften the onions and bring out the water. This is separating nicely. You know, this was a big bird we had. We had 16 people for dinner. I think the bird weighed about 22 pounds. So we're going to have a lot of stock. So we won't use it all for our soup. So we'll do the same thing we did with our beef stock, and we'll strain it into mason jars. We do this when it's hot so that the stock is almost sterile. We'll let this settle in the refrigerator. The fat will come to the top. Then when you want to use it for a soup or whatever, you can take it out, take the fat off the top, pour it out very gently, and have a almost clear stock. It's beautiful. We're going to turn the fire up a little bit now. We've cooked this for about 15 minutes. Soften them up. Take the lid off, turn the fire up to medium, and now they'll start to brown. Going to cook off the moisture first, and then the starches and sugars from the onions will start to brown. You're going to come back and stir this every so often, every few minutes, until they're brown. You don't want them to burn on the bottom, so you just keep turning them. Man, does that smell good. While we're watching the onions cook, we're prepping the croutons. Now, normally you'd start with a big loaf of bread because we're going to float this on top of the soup. But we're in the habit of eating baguettes these days, so I've got all these little baguettes. We've brushed one side with olive oil in the oven to get brown. You want to pay attention to those. They're easy to burn. We've got the oven set at 350. We're going to pour off the fat. We'll pour a little bit off the top. This is pours from the bottom, so you see it'll leave the fat behind. We're doing another batch through the separator. This really only took a few minutes to separate out. Let's go look at the onions. Onions are starting to brown nicely. We've stirred them every few minutes. Better check those croutons. The biggest challenge when you're doing this at home is you'll have a kitchen full of people watching you. And they'll engage you in conversation. You'll forget about the croutons and burn them. And you'll forget about the onions and burn them. So do yourself a favor and set a timer. Set it for 2 minutes at a time so it reminds you every couple minutes to check. 2 or 3 minutes. You just keep hit the restart button and set it again. That way it'll interrupt your conversation and you won't forget about your cooking. You see that? Starting to brown. This has been now cooking for about 15 minutes or so. We've probably got another 10 minutes before it's brown. We'll come back and check it again. This French onion soup has a gratin on top, so the croutons we're roasting in the oven are going to float on the soup. On top of that is going to be a cheese. This is a Emmentaler. It's a type of Swiss. It's a little stronger than a normal Swiss, and I particularly like it for this soup. We're slicing it very thinly. It's really the cheese straddling the pieces of bread that keeps the bread from sinking. Getting there. Getting nicely brown. Don't worry about the recipe. We'll post that on the website, deerfieldranch.com. French onion soup. Let's check those croutons. They are done. Just about there. You want to take your time. Don't cook them too fast. That's when you burn them. Get into the zen of the cooking, you know. Relax with it. Just enjoy the sounds and the smells. Don't try to hurry it along too much. What we're going to do now is we're going to stir in 3 tablespoons of flour. The flour will cook with the onion oil, and then when we add it to the soup, it'll act as a thickening agent. So 3 tablespoons of flour. This is going to look kind of weird when you do it. It gets pasty, strange looking, but don't worry about it. It's the way it's supposed to be. When you get it in the soup, it'll all separate. It'll just be fine. You want to cook this with the flour for 3 minutes. The flour has to be cooked before it goes in the soup, or it'll have a flour taste to it. If it starts to get too brown, just turn your fire down a little bit. Caramelized onions. All together they cooked about 30 minutes. Cook the flour for 3 minutes. Now what we're going to do, we're going to pour that in this pot to start with. This will deglaze the pot that the onions cooked in and remove all the good stuck on sugars from the side of the pot. You can see I've got a few pieces of onion in there that got a little dark. Don't worry about it. Adds character to the soup. You can just begin to see the fat come out the spout when you're done. That's one reason I like the glass one. Boy, does that smell good. I'm bringing this to a boil just to make sure the flour is cooked. It's got a nice consistency now. So I've got all the stock in here. It's been cooking for about 15 minutes. Time for a taste. It's time to open that second bottle of wine for your guests that have gathered in the kitchen. This can sit here and cook for as long as you like, actually. Just turn it down, let it simmer. Delicious. The bowls we're going to prep. I don't really have the perfect bowls. The perfect bowls would be somewhere between these 2 sizes. Some oven-proof ware. These are ramekins. If you're going to serve this onion soup for a first course of a meal, you can use these little ramekins. We're going to have it for a main course, so I'm going to use these big bowls. One trick we're going to do is add some fresh onion to the bottom of this. This could be grated or just finely chopped. This gives a little fresh onion taste to the soup. That's really quite nice. We're ready now. We can do the soup anytime. We've got the onions in there. We're going to put a little cheese in now. A little of the same cheese. Just a little tad on the bottom. We're ready to go. We'll fill the bowls. We'll float the bread on top. We'll put 3 croutons on each one. Then we're going to lay the cheese on the top. We're going to kind of drape it on the sides of the bowl. That way when it melts, it'll kind of stick to the sides. It looks nice and also helps hold the bread up. One last little touch on this. We're going to take a little cognac. We're going to put just a tad, about a teaspoon of cognac in each one. This gives it just a little kick. This and the raw onion really sets it apart. Now it goes in the 350 degree oven for about 10 minutes. And then just before you take it out, you turn the broiler on, just to brown the cheese a little bit. We're just about ready to sit down. Let's pour another glass of wine. We'll join you at the table. The onion soup's under the broiler. It'll just take a minute. That's all the time it's going to take is to put together a quick salad. Just a little red leaf lettuce from the garden, little sliced pepper. We'll put a little red onion on that. Red onion for raw on a salad, yellow or white onion for cooking. I don't like the consistency or the texture of red onions when it's cooked, so it's best raw. We like to do a simple vinaigrette. The term is used loosely since it doesn't have any vinegar in it. What it does have in it is lemon juice, mustard, a little balsamic, olive oil, Grey Poupon. Don't use that yellow stuff. This is some ground herbs. It's mixed Italian spices, oregano, basil, rosemary, little balsamic vinegar. This is a very rich balsamic. It only takes a touch. Look at how thick it is. The mustard acts as the emulsifier. You pour the oil in very gently, slowly, while you're whipping, and it'll stay emulsified. You add oil until, by taste, it's the right combination of oil, balsamic, and lemon juice. Little grind of pepper, little salt. We're on the salad. Let's have a little fun and put a little cheese on top. Little flakes of Parmesan. Come on everybody, let's have a seat. We're ready to pull the soup out of the broiler. Doesn't that look good? And we'll serve it. We've had a debate here about the wine. I'm going to serve the Zinfandel 2007, but my guests have wondered why not drink it with some Sauvignon Blanc, particularly since we made the stock with some Sauvignon Blanc. So I think we ought to taste them together. This is the 2010 Deerfield Sauvignon Blanc, Peterson Vineyard. This is the 2007 Sonoma Valley Zinfandel. My feeling is the soup is rich. It's got cheese in it. It's got a lot of high oil content. I think it'll be perfect with this Zin. On the other hand, it'll contrast with the Sauvignon Blanc. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Thank you.
Careful, it's hot.
That's super. I like that you put the the fresh onion at the very bottom. It's superb with the red onion. Is this an award winner?
Gold Medal Harvest Fair.
Well, happy there.
I think it pairs well, don't you?
Oh, it's fantastic. You bet.
We'll save the Sauvignon Blanc for the salad.
All right. I'm kind of doing a little here and there.
Bon appetit. Join us for the next one, which, by the way, is going to be chocolate truffles. Just in time for Christmas.